Good to see all my friends here and get things rolling. So, Torin, let's get started with you. First of all, thank you very much for joining me today. I know you're on the road and you took some time out to speak to us today. So, thank you.
No, you're absolutely welcome. And, I appreciate you for trusting my voice with your trusted audience. I got to say, I know this wasn't part of our introduction, but I just want to say something because we are in a very precarious time. Like, this is not one of those moments where we get to allow diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging to be something that's passé, to be something that is secondary. We have to find a way to make diversity and inclusion important in our organizations. And so what I say to folks often is the wounds of honor are often self-inflicted. Honor is something that each of us is born with. Honor is something that cannot be given. It cannot be taken. It must only not be lost. So many of us have lost our honor. Like, we've still displayed microaggression and bias and prejudice and racism, even in a Zoom environment.
Yeah.
We've got some work to do. So, Chris, I thank you so much for having my voice.
No, I was definitely inspired by you, Torin, when I first heard you speak. And I still remember that quote you said once, which was the ROI of diversity is just greater humanity. And that really struck a chord with me. And, I really felt the passion there that you have for this. And again, really, it shows that you're speaking. And I think you're a great person to listen to around this stuff. So if you don't know Torin, he's a diversity and inclusion strategist, consultant that helps employers of all sizes to design and implement diversity and inclusion solutions that generate tangible business improvements and ROI. Torin, I want to focus our conversation today on messaging. I'd like to start out by asking you some of the most common mistakes employers make when it comes to marketing to and messaging to diversity candidates.
Yeah, I think the primary mistake that they make is that they feel one size fits all. And that can be taken a variety of different ways, in the sense of, let's go with option A. We think that we can just create one job description, one press release, one announcement, one page, one type of messaging, and that is going to be well received by every single audience. The dimensions of diversity. Like, we mess up because we think that the monolith, if you will, is going to receive that. That's the first thing. I think the second way that messaging is messed up is because we feel like we don't have to work hard at telling the truth. So we'd rather paint a message that everything is wonderful inside of our organizations. We'd rather do that by going and grab stock photography, or we work hard at not telling the truth about our condition. And the messaging for a single mother may be entirely different for a tenured professional who's been rocking in a particular space, a particular discipline for 5 or 10 years. I'm not saying that everything needs to be parsed. I'm saying we should be spending more time than we have been in trying to curate messaging that is going to land with the dimensions of diversity and inclusion. That's what I see is our number one issue. We just we too often think that we can just get this. It's almost like we're being lazy, Chris.
Yeah, well, it's a process, right? You have to really work at this. It takes time, of course, and you have to. And it comes from the top too. Your leadership has to believe in this as well for it to become true.
And if I was to build on that, I'd say the layer below that is, in terms of custom, unique messaging. The layer below that is, let's include the voice of our people more.
Yes.
Let's absolutely do short form video. Let's get testimonials. Let's do Instagram and Twitter takeovers by our employees. Allow that voice to be showcased and to be amplified in a way that says, wait a minute, I like what this organization is doing. Let's be bold and take risk in our messaging. I have clients now that did not appreciate the restrictive Georgia voting laws. I have other clients who didn't appreciate the restrictive Texas abortion law. And before you say that I'm being political, I'm not. I'm just telling you, people are people. So I have clients where those issues were important enough to them that they said, we want to speak out about that. Let's get our employees on record. Let's take a picture, put a quote up. Let's throw that out. I just want to see us be more authentic in our messaging.
Yeah. What employers come to mind who are doing that kind of messaging well, do you think? Can you name a company or two that you're kind of, you like in that space?
I always hesitate to name companies because I think that, the moment you start to name a company and say that they are doing something well, it's almost, it's literally like the next week, something negative will come up about them inside of the press. And so here's what I want to do. I want to be fair. I want to be fair in this discussion. I won't name positive employees, but I also am not going to highlight and name negative employees, those that have had lawsuits against them, settlements against them. I won't do any of those things. So I'm going to be fair in the conversation. What I will say to you is that there are a number of examples. You have ice cream makers that do an incredible job around their messaging. We have retailers that are doing an incredible job around messaging. You have B Corps that do an incredible job around their messaging. Most of the Fortune 500 do a decent job around their messaging. We should be looking at the NASDAQ, who said they are giving folks about 2 years to get their game together as it relates to diversity and inclusion reporting. You have the FTC. Is it the FTC? I think it's the Federal Trade Commission.
Yep.
I think that department is saying we need to do more around reporting. Well, reporting is messaging. So I say that there are a number of examples that are out there. Some we know and will absolutely rise to the top when we do a quick Google search around diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. You have some that will show up, Chris, because they've done not 1, 2, but 3 evaluations around compensation in their organization so that they can bring parity in. That's a message. That message vibrates through the entire ecosystem when we know that they've looked at their compensation 3 different times to say, we want to make sure that we are paying women on par with their male colleagues. So when I say messaging, I'm not talking just marketing. I'm not talking just press releases. I'm talking anything that's external and internal facing of an organization.
Torin, how much do the words matter to underrepresented groups in terms of how they're being talked to among employers in terms of diversity recruiting? Can you speak to that a little bit?
The words matter a lot. The war for talent, I think, is a lazy phrase. 1998 is when that phrase was curated. We're still running around on nearly 30 years later saying a war for talent. When have we ever not fought to build the best and most high performing team in our organization? Like, we've never, technically in quotes, we've never been lazy about building high performing teams. So the messaging matters. Lowering the bar. When we say that chasing diversity and inclusion is a lowering the bar, let me say it a different way. We have hiring managers inside of organizations that are represented here on this particular broadcast that will say to you, well, I just want the best talent. I just want the best candidate. I just want the best. So that suggests that chasing diversity and inclusion, working a little bit longer to find Black and brown talent, or people from the LGBTQ community, or someone that has a disability, that suggests that working harder or a little bit differently to identify, source, and secure those individuals is a lowering of the bar. That's messaging. Yeah. So the words absolutely matter. The words matter if I'm talking to a battered spouse or a person who is being abused in their household versus a single mother who may have to take 2-3 buses to get to the workplace. That messaging matters. I'm not suggesting that we are putting that out in social media, but the words that we are using when we are doing development, when we are inspiring, when we are motivating, when we are upskilling individuals, yes, the language absolutely matters.
Awesome. And audience, if you have a question for Torin, I'll allow 1 or 2 questions, but Torin, as we wrap this up, just tell me about a time where you kind of helped a client overcome their diversity recruiting challenges. What comes to mind there?
I'd probably say that one of the biggest issues right now that I'm dealing with are paralytic leadership. So I coach a number of executives. Yes, I consult with organizations, but there are a number of companies that I go into and some that I'm not even into, but I'm working with their executive leaders because they are paralytic. They don't know what to do to get started. In their mind, Chris, they're like, we want to do something. We just don't necessarily know what to do. We don't know where to start. And so one of the things that I think is extremely important is I try to give them an actionable blueprint. And so what I say to them, number one, is leadership has to make a declarative statement. That statement has to suggest that diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging are important inside of the organization. You need to share that with every single person in the organization. If it's external facing, that's fine. But at minimum, as a leader, you need to make a statement in your organization. Now, let me define leader. I'm not speaking only C-suite. I'm talking about the person who runs a business unit, a department, or a team. You are a leader. Diversity and inclusion is more than just a consultant named Torin. It's more than just a chief diversity officer, which we know are largely underfunded and under-resourced. They are propped up, pat on the head, and told to sit in the corner and be quiet. They don't have any responsibility in a number of examples, and that's not going to get us to where we need to be. So number one, we need a declarative statement from leadership. Number two, they need to be willing to shift resources. If they're not willing to shift resources from schools that we've gone to historically over the last 10, 15, 20 years and start using that money to establish relationships with new HBCUs, with new Hispanic serving institutions, with new associations and organizations that may service different populations of diversity, then they're not serious about doing this work. And then last but not least, thirdly, Chris, we need leaders to hold people accountable. And people always ask me, well, Torin, how can you do that? Like, everybody can't do D&I. Yes, everybody can. So all you have to do is ask all of your employees, what did you do to support that declarative statement that we've issued? If we said D&I is important, then you should be able to ask every employee in your organization, what did you do to support our DEIB efforts? And if their answer is nothing, then that suggests to them, if they care, that answer should be different next year. Every single person.
Excellent advice, Torin. And on that note, I think we'll close up your session here. Appreciate you coming again. And TorinEllis.com for everybody on the call who wants to learn more about your services, right?
You got it. I'm across all of social media at Torin Ellis. Again, across all of social media at Torin Ellis.
Awesome. Well, Torin, thanks again for joining us today and have yourself a great day, man. Good to see you.
Enjoy the conference, man.
All right.